The threat of terrorism, the continued arrival of tens of thousands of migrants into the EU, the ongoing economic turmoil, the Brexit vote. As the EU grinds back into action after the summer break, we're going to be taking a look at the myriad of crises it faces. Hello and welcome to this edition of Talking Europe. We're coming to you this week from the annual Ambassadors Conference here in Paris, a week when top diplomats from around the world are brought back to hear their country's priorities on the international playing field for the months ahead. It's also a chance for the general public to come and meet their ambassadors and see how French relations are going down around the world.
I came today because I want to become an ambassador. I'm really motivated by the idea of meeting new people and representing France abroad.
I'm just really interested in international politics and the EU in particular.
Well, our first guest has been described by the French government as its European specialist. He served an unusually long time as France's permanent representative to the European Union, present often at some crucial moments like the expansion of the bloc in 2004. Mr. Pierre Sellal, welcome to the show and thanks for your time. As we get going again after this summer break, we look at the EU hit with a myriad of crises. How safe do you think the European Union actually is?
Yes, a myriad of crises that we had to cross, but we have to admit that we were able to tackle most of them. Look at the financial crisis, for instance. It was said a few years ago that the euro itself will not survive under the crisis. It wasn't the case.
Is it out of the crisis, though, when you look at Italy, their banks?
I know, but what was at stake at the moment was the very existence of the Eurozone and the future of the Euro. And we found solutions. Of course, everything is not perfect, but it is a crisis that we succeeded to overcome. The migration crisis, which was so hectic last year. I will not say that everything is settled, but look at the figures.
You think it's better?
Compare today's situation to last year, at least with what concerns refugees from Syria, the implementation of the agreement with Turkey, the situation is better than last year. Of course, there are always dramas. There are still these dramatic flows of people trying to cross the sea, and we have to pay tribute to what did the Italians even today?
Yes, on Monday,
rescue people. But just remember all these images of last year. We did not find final solutions. We need to complete the work. But you can say that these crises have been fatal for the European Union. Now we have another issue, which is of a very different nature. It is the British question, the question of Brexit. Of course, it's a very difficult question for UK, but it's also such an important event that requires reflection and action from the others, from the Union itself.
Indeed, and I'm going to look at the migration question in the second half of Talking Europe. So let's focus in this half on that Brexit question. It's thrown up a myriad of questions. We're even wondering if they'll actually ever leave the EU because they still haven't triggered that Article 50. Now that the UK is gone, how do you see that changing the EU? You know, France has often been seen as the socialist Europe, wanting to move more in that direction. The UK anti that very much more, the free market. Do you think we'll see a complete change in the EU?
I don't think so. Of course, the fact that the UK decides to leave Union, it's a very important event. We can say that Europe will not be different in the future. And France, as you know, would have preferred another decision by the British people, but we have to respect what was decided by the people. But I think that you can say today that there was a British-style Europe and a French-inspired Europe. Certainly it was the case in the 80s, maybe in the 90s. Today, there is a balance of policies. There are many influences which contribute to shape European policies. And I think that on the whole, if you consider the main policies, I don't think that the main focus, the thrust of European policies will dramatically change. But of course, it will be something different. I think for the economic status of Europe in the world will be different.
It was one of our biggest
On
economies.
external policy, it will be a difference also because UK was a very important part for France in the European debates on foreign policy.
And how do you think France wants the EU to react to this Brexit vote? You know, what kind of deal does France hope to see with the UK? A close one still? You know, having those kind of maybe more bilateral agreements with the UK, or being pretty harsh on them because not wanting a knock-on effect, not wanting a similar referendum in the Netherlands or in Italy or indeed in France?
You are right. I think there were some specific elements in the British referendum, but we can't ignore that a referendum concerning the European question would be difficult in many countries in Europe today. And as you quoted them, there were referenda in Denmark, in the Netherlands. Quite recently, we were also negative. So there was a question, how to convince people that Europe is there to bring solutions, to give answers to the needs and what people need, and not a constraint, not only rules, and how to convince that concerning most important issues of today, economically, socially, climate change,
security and so on.
the migration policy, the solutions are at European level and not through...
But I guess that's where people feel the solutions haven't been coming, because a lot of the crises aren't out completely.
In order to achieve that, I think we consider, and it is what the French president said this morning, that we have to focus on what is really important for European people, including French people. And which is first security. Okay. Security, protection, in all dimensions. Europe has to demonstrate that it is able to bring protection, to ensure protection.
Moving forward, do you think the EU is going to move more towards that integrated Europe, which is what I'm hearing France and Germany say they would like, or that more powers back to national government, which is a lot of what the Central and Eastern European countries want?
I think there are areas in which we have to go further. Just consider, as far as migration policy is concerned, the question of border control. Most member states did resist for 2 decades for having genuine European border guards or coast guards. One of the lessons we had to draw from the 2 last years' crisis is that we need to consider the external policy as a common good, a common responsibility, and not only a question of national competence. In such a area, we need to go further in the field of integration. At the same time, I think that we need to demonstrate to our people that when a decision is taken in Brussels, it is taken through transparent, democratic procedures involving national governments, that we participate fully to these decisions, and there is a national responsibility which is committed in that. It is not something which is coming from an institution, it's not something which is abstract.
So yeah, it's direct.
So we need to improve our procedures in this regard, to demonstrate to our people that what is decided in Brussels is not imposed, but that we all participate.
Because it's not exactly equal either, is it? I mean, Germany does seem to have a lot more sway in the EU than other countries, even compared to France. It does look like German Chancellor Angela Merkel has a lot of power.
Of course, Germany is a big country, the biggest economy, but Germany, and the same for France, can decide alone in European institutions. This is why the cooperation between Germany and France is so important, because the most important thing I could testify is that when there is an agreement between Germany and France, in most cases, this leads to a European decision. When there is no agreement between Berlin and Paris, it is very difficult to get a European decision. In all the meetings in which I'm present with my German counterpart, we have a shared discipline. When we are not in agreement, we organize ourselves to postpone the discussion.
We're hearing again this week more talk about that transatlantic trade agreement, TTIP. We're hearing from a French trade minister that they want to stop discussions, throw it out of the water.
No, it is a very ambitious negotiation, as you know. It was launched 2 years ago. And what we can say at this present juncture is that the conditions for an agreement are not there. Partly because of the ambition of this agreement, we address a number of issues which are very sensitive, partly because maybe there is not a sufficient capacity to compromise, and as a European negotiator, I would say that this lack of capacity to compromise is mainly on the other side, on the American side.
Okay. Well, Mr. Sellal, thanks so much for your time. We're going to look a bit more at economic matters now in a minute, but thank you indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, trade deals will undoubtedly play a big part of Brexit negotiations. And to give us a view from across the channel, we're going to meet now with France's ambassador to the UK, Miss Sylvie Bermann, a polyglot that has held top diplomatic posts from New York to Moscow to Beijing. She arrived in the UK just before the Scottish referendum there and was, of course, present when the UK held that referendum on the EU in June. Posted to France's sixth largest city, London is home to some 300,000 French citizens. Who better to give us a view on Franco-British relations? Ms. Bermann, welcome to the show. Let me start with that Brexit question. Has the fact that the UK decided to leave the EU damaged Franco-British relations?
Well, I don't think so, because we have very close relationship, in particular on the defense issues and also security issues, fight against terrorism. And just today, the Home Secretary had a lunch with our Minister of Interior and to discuss all those issues. So it won't disappear. We will still be the closest partners, and we are also permanent members of the Security Council, so we have the same responsibilities in the world.
Because indeed you mentioned their security. UK was the second largest military might in that EU, playing a role very much alongside France. Do you think in the Brexit negotiations this will have an impact? Will there be, that will be leniency towards the UK, because we do need them in terms of security of the European Union?
No, absolutely, but it will be a third state, so you will have to find new relationships. So I think the priorities now are trade issues and also the question of migration. But it's true that the question of security, participation to defense operation will be important as well. And so, the participation of the British troops were very important for us. But we'll have to find different partnership.
It's tough days and negotiations, I imagine, ahead. In terms of the economy, then, the other big issue, France nudged slightly ahead of the UK, and it became the fifth largest economy following that vote at the start of the summer. Could Paris become the city, the financial hub of the EU?
Well, I think the city won't disappear, obviously, and there's a lot of expertise there. But there is an important financial center with assets in France also. And after the Brexit, some activities like clearing houses or regulation will have to be relocated to other places. So Paris could be a candidate for that.
Do you think the British are more Eurosceptic than the French? Because a lot of people say if we held a referendum on the same question here in France today, that the French would opt out as well.
Well, it's very difficult to say. Maybe there was more Euroscepticism on the part of the British, but it's true that the EU needs reforms as well, and I think we will work towards that aim in order not only to consolidate the EU, but to reinstore democratic process, and we would like the people to understand more why the EU is important for them.
Yeah, I guess that's the question that most British voting out failed to find the answer to. They didn't see the positives. A lot of people now looking at the future of the EU, and a lot of people looking at the socialist kind of economy that France has always been behind compared to the UK's more liberal free market style of things. Do you think that the fact that the UK isn't part of the EU, that will change the EU for the rest of us on that economic field?
Well, I don't know about that. It's true that we have different economic policies, but at the same time there was a kind of balance, and I think that was important. But you can't say that the German economic policy is socialist. So, well, I think we will keep this balance. And as you know, in France, there's been a lot of reforms also, and some liberal reforms, and we will continue to do so.
Ms. Bermann, thanks so much for joining us here on France 24. That brings us to the end of the first half of the show, but do stay with us. We'll be back after the news. See you then.